Are you?
Wait,
Yes,
I
we're
think
live.
you,
We can't.
I think we need a new
We're
introduction
watching.
because this is going to be the video for. We're going to use this
For
video,
live,
so we need a
Armin.
new. Yeah. So Faisal,
Oh.
introduce us again.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Nice to see you again. My name is Faisal Said Al Mutar. I'm the host for Secular Jihadist podcast. We're doing live streaming
And
around
this
the
is a
globe.
second introduction.
Don't tell me what to do. It's
Go back to
gonna
your country.
be okay. It's gonna be our live streaming around the globe. This is me, Faisal Saeed. I am from Iraq. I am a refugee. I talk English. I sell two apples, $1. Okay, people, two apples, $1. Um, and with us we have three of the usual suspects. Let's start with uh, a woman of color, Yasmin Mohammed. She is the author of The God Delusion, A Letter to a Christian Nation,
Yep.
and the Breaking the Spell by with Daniel Dennett.
Yep.
Um,
Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone.
that's also I like that book. Yeah, great work, Yasmin. So she also happens to be the author of Confessions of an Ex-Muslim, which is a memoir of her life. You can see some snippets online if you go to confessionsofan-ex-muslim.com. She recently, well, not recently, it's been like 5 years. She did the interview with Dave Rubin to talk about her life and her views, which I recommend everyone to check out. I also recommend that people check out her Facebook page, in which she mostly posts about her new articles and new posts. We have Ali Rizvi, who is the author of Islam and the Future of Tolerance, uh, with co-authored with Asr Omani and
Linda
Tariq
Sarsour.
Fatah and Tariq Fatah. Um, so Ali wrote a great book with Tariq Fatah, and he has great experiences with him. And he thinks that this is the best book ever. It was reviewed by Fox News, and it's all over. He also happens to be the author of The Atheist Muslim, who I have rated it 9/11 on Amazon.com. I recommend people to check my review on that book. It's a great book. It's good for people from age 5 to age 15. Very amazing children book, and and yeah, and he also posts frequently on his Facebook page, so you can go to Al Rizvi Facebook and you can see his latest posts about how much he loves Bernie Sanders and hates Hillary Clinton. Um, the other guy, I don't recognize him. He looks quite alien. Um, Armin, I think that's Armin. Yeah, I can see him. Yeah, Armin Navabi
Hi.
is the founder of Mujahideen Khalq Iran, which is a terrorist group in Iran by
my
the state,
God.
categorized by the State Department. He also part of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. He's a friend with Qasem Soleimani. Um, they started
No.
the they
Wrong.
started the biggest
Wrong.
allies of Mahdi army in Iraq to defeat the Sunnis, and is responsible for a lot of massacres, including the one in Fallujah and Ramadi
He also,
and
Armin
some other
also,
places around the country.
he also
Uh,
helped with Ahmadinejad organize the Holocaust conference in 2006, if I recall
yeah,
correctly.
Oh, fuck.
I think it was.
he's the main organizer for the conference. So Armin did a lot of things. I'm very proud of him. I think his mom is proud of him, and he also happens to be the the founder of Atheist Takia. Is that the name of the book? Yeah, it's Atheist Takia. They have more than 1 million followers on Facebook. He also the author of Why God Exists, which you can find on Amazon and in black market in China. The so we're gonna continue with our podcast and see whatever people are listening, who are listening, if they have a question. Our main topic for today, even though we kind of have discussed it before with some of our guests, let's call them guests, even though I would consider them to be enemies, is immigration. So this is going to be the main theme of the live stream that we have tonight. So, I mean, I think that in our podcast today, we have kind of a diverse views about the immigration. But that being said, I think except Yasmin, who was born in Canada, the two of us are immigrants. So I'm an immigrant.
Me
Armin
too.
is an immigrant from Israel, and Ali is an immigrant from Kazakhstan. So the three of us happen to be immigrants in different phases. I think that I am the latest immigrant, right? I came in 2013. Ali came into Canada in which year?
1999. But I was
1999.
I was
That's
24.
when that's when I reached my puberty. And Armin, when did you come to the West?
Well, God, it was 2004. Canada,
2000.
not US.
Yeah, so you arrived 2004, and that's about 13 years ago. I arrived about 4 years ago. Yasmin was born in the West. Ali came in 1999. So, I mean, we all came through different phases. I mean, I think that I think since 9/11 happened, there has been lots of discussions about taking immigrants from Muslim-dominated countries. What we should be doing about these immigrants? There has been recent conflicts that have expedited kind of the rise of immigrants, including, for example, the Syrian conflict, that is considered, I think, according to the United Nations, the second biggest immigration of people after the Holocaust and after World War II. So there has been the topic of immigration has been discussed a lot in the media, and what should we do about it. We discuss in conferences and panels, and it's considered one of the hottest topics in today's world. And I would add to that is that after the recent, I mean, some extent recent executive order by President of the United States, Donald Trump, there has been more conversation about what should be done about immigrants to the United States coming from Muslim countries, and there has been a lot of discussion about immigration in Europe as well.
That's our first question here. Is
in
what can
latest elections in France, for those who understand the French, and I understand some of it, they were able to talk about, like, within the candidates, they are talking about a lot of immigration from Morocco and Algeria and etc. And I think the discussion of immigration has also, some experts and people, they say it's a main factor of the elections in the Brexit, in the British exit of the European Union. So it's one of them. I mean, what I'm trying to highlight is that the topic of immigration has been one of the main major conversations in today's media and as well as political landscape. So we're going to start with the first question. Can you read it, Yasmin?
Yep. First question. What can the EU, this is from Pragmatic Progressive. He says, or she says, what can the EU and UN do to increase security at European borders while respecting human rights? How can Europe better their background check system or lack thereof?
Who should start? Should I start first?
Well, let's Armin, do you want to take it? And then we'll follow up.
So again, it's what can Europe do to better their background check system or lack thereof, while also respecting human rights?
I think honestly, background check and stuff is a very it's a topic that you have to have a lot of expertise, and you have to this is not something that people I see a lot of people comment about it as if it was an easy solution. Like, this is people that are experts in immigrations, they have a hard time dealing with this. And I honestly I wanted us to talk about more about whether I mean, obviously, any kind of vetting that you have for people has to stop all kinds of criminals, right? It shouldn't be country specific or ideology specific. So you just want to stop bad people coming to your country, regardless of where they're coming from. But I think this focus on immigration is distracting a lot of us from a bigger problem, and this is the more you talk about borders and immigration policies, the more we're not focusing on the fact that ideas don't recognize borders, ideas don't recognize immigration policies, right? And I think that we're fighting an ideological battle.
No,
let me. Yeah, no, I think that, the question, that immigration question is a big question, and I think that people that are responsible for that should always be responsible for that, for all kinds to stop all kinds of criminals from coming in. But I think even if you're sitting in the country and you have borders that stops all kinds of criminals from coming in, you still have bad ideas coming into your country. And if you actually, even though I don't want to focus on terrorism, but even if you are somebody that is mainly concerned about terrorism, if you look at most of the terror attacks, these are people that were born in those countries, that were radicalized by ideas that came from other countries. And no matter how tough your immigration policy is, if bad ideas spread in your country, you're still going to have problems. And this goes way beyond just terror threats, because bad ideas could cause harm in many different ways. And actually, if you add up the cost of religion and dogma and Islam and faith, it might add up to much more than a couple of people dying here and there. And if these ideas become commonplace in your country, you might suffer in a much more subtle but much more costly ways than just having terror attacks here and there. So I think there's a lot of talk about immigration policies and how to strengthen borders, but I think that we also need to talk a lot about how to stop ideas from spreading around, not just people. I think people are not the only vessels of ideas. Now, in the age of social media, there's a lot easier way to infiltrate the country without.
We're fucked, basically, Armin. That's what you're saying.
Can I say this is Armin? Just a question to you to follow up on that. I actually agree with you. I don't think there's any walls or any bans or anything of people that's going to prevent kids going online and watching Anwar al-Awlaki videos, or going on seeing ISIS Twitter accounts, and finding some sense of belonging, or feeling susceptible to those kinds of ideas. I mean, just recently there was this story of an FBI translator. I was trying to help them fight ISIS, and she fell in love with an ISIS fighter, and next thing you know, they're married. So she went to, if you guys haven't seen this, Google it. It just happened a couple of days ago. So that just kind of shows that there's like the only way to really prevent this stuff is do what North Korea does, which is ban the internet for everybody, which is not a practicality. Actually, you don't know with Trump what's going to happen. So I think that's the overall overarching idea that I agree with you that most people miss, and we should be talking about that a lot more. But short term, do you think it's unreasonable for people to be worried when they see images of what's happening in Paris and Brussels and all of the stuff, people, and what's happening in Syria? Do you think it's unreasonable for people to think that maybe we should not have these people? I don't agree with it, but do you think it's unreasonable for people to have a fear of that? And if not, or if so, either way, what do you think the short-term solution to that is? That huge influx of people coming in.
I think they should be even more worried than what they are, because they're just getting a glimpse of what people are experiencing under these countries all the time, and you're just getting a small dosage of it, and you're panicking. But if you didn't get that small dosage, then you wouldn't give a shit about people that are living it day and night. So maybe you should be getting a little bit of a dosage of it, so you wake up, so you don't think that you're living in the safe bunker, because this is a global problem. And if it's not your problem today, it will be your problem one day, because you're not going to be able to live in your safe country forever. I mean, eventually it's going to come and haunt you. So maybe more immigration is good, so that this global problem becomes your local problem. So maybe you wake up and deal with it.
Mhm.
So should I go next or Nasmin?
Yeah,
ladies
go
first.
ahead.
Ladies
Okay.
first.
No. Continue. Go ahead.
Okay. So here is what I think. So I've written an article that I have published recently on Free Inquiry magazine about Trump and the immigration policy. So my first observation is that I've been in America for about 4 years, and I've organized events surrounding Islam and the subject we're talking about right now on this podcast. And many of these events that regarding whenever we're going to talk about Islam, there has been lots of security in many of these events. While it's not the case when someone is talking about Christian extremism or Buddhist extremism and so on. So what are we really worried about? We're worried about literally Muslims, religious Muslims, and that is radical Muslims who believe that people who are atheists and non-believers should not be able to discuss these subjects, so they should blow them up. So we were not worried about Mormons coming to blow us up. We're not worried about Buddhists coming from blow us up. So we do have a.
Well, we're not even worried about the moderate Muslims coming to blow us, the ones who are escaping all this stuff.
So that's where.
Or are we? That's a question.
So let me finish. I think that's a very good question. We are worried about, we're worried about specific type of Muslims, right? And with the moderate Muslims, it's also depending. So some of the moderate Muslims, as you know, and many of us know, that for example, when the Charlie Hebdo attack happened, they said we don't support the attack on Charlie Hebdo, but they brought it to themselves, right? So there is a lot of people that we consider to be moderates may not necessarily support our killing, but when we get killed, they say, well, we brought it to ourselves. So there are multiple layers that we have to be very specific. I think that the war against extreme ISIS and the war against Al-Qaeda and others is an ideological warfare. It's not just a war against people, it's more of an ideological warfare. And we do need allies in this fight against extremism. We do need allies, and importantly, we need allies who are Muslims in this fight against extremism. So any act that says we should ban Muslims and generalize on Muslims is something I'm by default and by principle I am opposed to. But at the same time, I think there should be prioritization in this discussion about immigration, about who are the most persecuted minorities within Muslim communities. And that means the atheist people who live in the Muslim world, the secular Bengali bloggers who are being beheaded, the gay people, the Yazidis, and then so after we get these people out, after these people who have been struggling living in these Muslim societies out, then we're going to talk about Muslims who can be allies in our fight against extremism. And we should accept these people out. But I'm going to be honest with you. Any Muslim or any Christian or any Jew comes into this country and believes that atheists should be killed, women should be living in bags and stuff, there could be other countries they can immigrate to. A Muslim who believes in Sharia law can live in Turkey. He doesn't need to live in America. He can live in Turkey, can live in more conservative Muslim societies that also accept refugees. But these people who cannot even live in quote unquote moderate Muslim countries, they are the ones who should be shifted here. So we have to have a system that puts priorities. I am sick and tired of this concept that all people represent the same danger. Like this is like we should be more worried about car accidents as we should be worried about Muslims. No, because there is an intentional ideological narrative that some people follow that we have to follow. So that being said, so I have been very much opposed to the Trump Muslim ban, and the reason why I've been opposed to it, because number one, it's a generalization on nationality. Nationality and terrorism have no correlation. There's no correlation of being born in Iraq and being a terrorist. There is a correlation between an extremist Muslim and a terrorist. So this is the main reason I oppose
an
the
extremist
Trump ban.
Muslim is a terrorist.
Exactly. Yeah, and I mean not necessarily, but he's more prone to violence compared to atheist people who read Richard Dawkins. So my I think when it comes to immigration, I think that first of all we have to have a prioritization. We need to make sure what is who are our allies are, who are our enemies are, and allow our allies to come to this country, and we have to fight our enemies. And those who may be in between, who can be conservative, they want Sharia law, but whatever, and I want them to stay alive. I'm a human rights activist. I believe every human should
Well,
have the
you're a
right to have a life.
refugee as well. You're a
Yeah.
refugee yourself, so.
So I want every human to be alive. I don't want conservative Muslims to die. I don't want people who support the Muslim Brotherhood to die. I don't want anyone to die, to be honest.
Okay. So
I've lived
how
death
do
my
you?
entire life. So,
I-
but at the same time, they should not be allowed to come here. There are other countries that can accept them. Turkey can accept them. We can pay money for Turkey so they can accept them, etc., etc. So I think there is a mixed.
Faisal, how do you? So you talk about the different priorities and the different tiers of the kinds of people that we should. And I think that's right. I don't agree with Trump's ban at all. I don't think banning anybody is a good idea. I think vetting is a very good idea, and vetting is important. All of us, when we came, well, except for Yaz, I mean, me and Armin, and we've been through the whole vetting process. It takes like sometimes a couple of years, sometimes 5 to 10 years to be able to be vetted in order to come over here. For me personally, it took about 2 years. I don't know how long it took for you, Faisal, the vetting.
Yeah, about 2 to 3 years. Yeah.
Right. So we all think that that's very important. But how do you the tiers and the priority groups that you're describing? How do you go about determining who's in which group? How do you go about separating those out?
I proposed this in some of the interviews I've done. I said that in order for us to, first of all, the people who interview these individuals, okay, they should be also coming from these cultures. For example, in Iraq, United States have invaded Iraq. There are many people within Iraq who serve with the U.S. Army intelligence, translators, all of these kinds of stuff. These people know more about the culture than a high school graduate coming from Arkansas. Let's be honest. They know the language, they know the culture, they can know who is who. Bring these people to do the determination aspect. As if, how do you know someone is lying? How do you know someone is not telling the right story? It needs a form of training and expertise in which you ask them right questions. If people are familiar more with the culture, they can tell them, okay, so you live in Amriya district in Iraq. You were there in 2007. In 2007, Al-Qaeda took over Amriya. What were you doing during that time? So if someone is more familiar with the not the geopolitics, but more the domestic politics, they can actually ask the right questions to know what is the right, what is the environment that these people grew up in during these conditions. And the more you ask more specific questions, the more you can know whether someone is lying or not. I mean, you can use that on a base-to-base, like personal basis, in which when somebody makes a story and say, oh, I escaped, for example, North Korea, escaped whatever authoritarian regime, and you tell them like, oh, what is your family relation to the Kim Jong-un, or something like that. The more you know about that country, the more you can ask more specific questions. And that's why I think that the people who can be best to be doing the vetting system are not people who follow training manual, graduating from high school in the United States. It's more of the people that we have accepted here, coming from Iraq, Syria, whatever, who are allies to the United States and want the best in the United States and would do the right question. I think that this is the best way to do it, in my opinion. I think like I'm not even an expert in asking the right questions, but I can know whether someone is an extremist or not. I mean, it's like porn. You know it when you see it. There are so many things that you can actually, your gut reaction, not necessarily your gut reaction because that sounds very irrational, but like you can know when someone is telling you, I come from Fallujah and I grew up in Fallujah in 2005 when the US war was happening against Fallujah. You can tell them that like, okay, what were you doing when Al-Qaeda was taking over your neighborhood? There are so many things that
and you don't even have to get that specific, because Muslims in the West know what to say for a Western audience. But if you just ask a Yemeni or an Iraqi or an Egyptian that was born and raised in that country with over 90% Muslims, and you ask them a simple question like, do you think that gay people are immoral? Do you think that apostates should be killed?
Okay, but guys-
They're going to
but
be
guys-
honest with you. They're not going to have any reason.
They have not got
dance
training.
around-
but because of-
Exactly. They're not going to do the
But-
mental gymnastics. They're
You
going
guys
to be
are
honest
you guys
with
are
you.
suggesting that we should accept people that fit our culture and stuff, but I mean, what if somebody comes and says, "What is it fair to somebody that is suffering, that somebody is looking for a good life, for us to refuse them just because they don't fit our culture?" Like, even though
Armin,
we
as an ex-Muslim, I think all of us are in the most danger of having a country full of unvetted Muslims. So I think what Faisal is saying makes a lot of sense. And of course, we have to find out if their values align.
Well, I don't think anybody's saying they should be unvetted, but
No, but he's saying we're asking them about their values.
Let's say they're vetted, but let's say they are against gay marriage. Let's say they believe that Sharia should be law, but this is a mother of two that is trying to survive and is trying to provide for her kids, and maybe she's being prosecuted because she's maybe she's Shia in a Sunni country, or she's Sunni in a Shia country, but she has some extremist viewpoints. But I mean, she's going to come here and she's not going to hurt anybody, but she's going to have extremist views. She's going to think maybe gay people.
You don't know that. You don't know that child of hers that she's raising. You don't know what that child of hers is going to do. Do you want her as your neighbor?
Are we going to judge a child before they're even grown?
Oh my God, Armin, you're coming up with these hypotheticals, man.
I'm saying other people. These are not my arguments, by the way. I agree with you guys.
No, I think that's a good question, though, because
other people's, yeah.
Because a lot of us, every ex-Muslim I know, there was many ex-Muslims were sons and daughters of very conservative Muslims. I mean, kids can go either way. Like every ex-Muslim.
Yes, they could go either way, but we have to use our brains, don't we? So when we're vetting people.
Yeah, that's what we're advocating for. We're advocating for being smart about it, right?
Well, it sounds like Armin is saying that the way that we're suggesting that we be smart about it isn't necessarily the humanitarian way to do it.
This is not. I'm not suggesting that this is my views. I'm just giving you guys what people would respond. Okay.
Yeah. But Armin, I answered your question to some extent. I said that those who believe in these values, I don't want them to be dead either. So I think that America has. In the West have a lot of money. What we can do is that these people who believe in these values, they can be living in Turkey, they can be living in Iran. So if she's Shia escaping a Sunni persecution, she can live in Iraq escaping this, and the West can give them money. They can give money to the UNHCR, the United Nations Committee of Refugees. We don't want them to be here in which the person believes apostates should be killed and atheists should be killed, be living in our neighbor. We cannot.
Okay, so that's one question. Like the apostate should be killed. Someone thinks that, but let's talk about because we're talking about a lot of these values. But let's talk about what these values are. People who oppose same-sex marriage, for instance, like a lot of immigrants who oppose it. There are loads and loads of people who live in the U.S. who oppose same-sex marriage.
Ali, what's your opinion? You didn't give us what you think we should do. How do you think we should?
No, but let's finish it. Can you finish this?
But But I just want to finish this thing. We'll get to that. But this is what I'm talking about. I do think that I agree with Faisal that there should be tiers, and to tiers as in TIERS, not TEARS, even though we might have both. But the tiers as in priorities of people. But when we talk about who has the same values as us, when we start getting into things like same-sex marriage and who opposes same-sex marriage, there are loads of Southern evangelicals who also oppose same-sex marriage. Should they be deported, or should sort of?
But that's not the category I'm putting. I think that's a good point. But that's not the category I'm putting. Is that yes, same-sex marriage? That's more specific, but more people.
But I agree with you on the apostate should be killed.
If they support killing gays, it's different than supporting same-sex marriage. I mean, I'm talking about violent acts. Do you support gays should be killed? I think that
I agree with you on that.
Guys, my grandma thought I should be killed for leaving Islam, but I'm pretty sure my grandma is never going to kill me. Okay.
Yeah, but I don't want your grandma to live around me, to be honest.
Well, I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind having my grandma around.
Oh my God!
Because she's your grandma. You have a more personal attachment.
Okay,
to her.
but no, I mean, what we're suggesting that we should not have people here that might do something wrong, whereas even if there's some place that we know something is going to happen to them, like basically we're trying to avoid something from happening while they're actually we're looking it in the face. You know what I mean? I mean, yes, here's the thing, if we bring a lot of Muslims here, and a lot of them have extreme views, some of them are going to do some things that is going to hurt somebody, but at the same time, you might have two people might get killed, but you might have ended up saving 1,000 people, so the net is still positive.
We all agree that there should be lots of people lives saved. You can actually save lives by not only allowing them to come to the West. It doesn't have to be you only can, because you don't have to look at it as a binary system. There are many Muslim countries that are safe. Malaysia is a safe Muslim country. For Muslims who believe in a values like Sharia or whatever, they can live in Malaysia, and we can give them money to live in Malaysia.
I see your argument, but all these countries have a certain number, right? So once they hit the number, they're not going to take any more. So if, like, say, for example, let's say Canada, right? If they go from 5,000 to 10,000, that's going to be that's going to be 5,000 more people that are going to be able to go to a country. So yes, they could go to Malaysia, but every one of these countries has a limit. So if each one of these countries, United States, Canada, England, whatever, even if they add one to that limit, that's one extra person that is going to have a place to go to stay. So it's not like, it's not like everybody could go to Malaysia, or everybody could go to Iran, and
everybody can go to Canada, or everybody can go to America. Yeah. Everybody has a limit. So that's exactly the point. So since we have a limit, then we should be saying, okay, if we're only able to take this many thousand people. So what we're going to do is we're going to take Yazidis first, because they're the ones that are sex slaves and they're the ones that are being killed. Or we're going to take gay people because they're the ones that are being killed. Or we're going to take apostates because they're the ones being killed. And then if there's any room left over after that, or even young women, there's lots of people that we could be taking in, that we are saving lives, and at the same time not putting the lives of our citizens at risk.
So another question for you.
We can do both at the same time.
Yes, one question for you really quick is that you had so you've got the whole open borders thing on one side, then you've got the blanket bans on the other side, and then you have what Justin Trudeau has been doing in Canada, which is like they're bringing in the immigrants, they're bringing a lot of them. They are vetting them. They haven't allowed like straight single males in, like they're allowing gay males, and they're bringing in like men with families and kids. So that's their sort of initial screening thing. I do think it should go a little bit further. But where along the spectrum do you think it should be, in your opinion?
I don't understand the question.
I'm saying
should what be along the spectrum?
If you have on one end of the spectrum, you have open borders. On the other end, you have a full ban. And in the middle, you have some sort of vetting process, right? So you have one kind of vetting process like you have here in Canada, which Trudeau is doing. You have other places with other different vetting processes. Where do you think it should lie? Do you think it should be a complete ban? Do you think it should be...
No, I don't think it should be a complete ban, and I don't think it should be complete open borders either. I think that there should be a proper vetting process. If you're asking me specifics for what I don't know what the specific criteria is, because I don't work in immigration, but I just know that I can trust people that do, that there should be a proper vetting process. And I do agree with Faisal that within that vetting process, we should be looking for people that are most at risk, and we should be looking for people that share our values after we've chosen people that are most at risk. I still haven't heard Ali's opinion. He's asking us a lot of questions, but he's never given us what his thoughts are.
Oh, well, my opinion is actually, it's sort of between, it's actually a lot of overlap between what Armin's saying and Faisal is saying. And I think that they're, in a lot of ways, they're very similar. So I don't think, again, in complete bans, I don't think that there should be open borders. I think there should be some time given to it. I think there should be vetting. I think there should be strong vetting. My only disagreement, I wouldn't even call it a disagreement, I just think it's a tough place to navigate. We should be very careful talking about it, is when we talk about what these values are and how we define them. I mean, there are, I remember there was a debate, the presidential debate in 2012 for the Republicans, where this guy actually held up a Bible. It was a YouTube question, and he asked everybody, he's like, do you believe in this book? Do you believe that it's the word of God? And there were like 3 presidential candidates who said, yes, it is the word of God. And a lot of stuff in that book, like knowing what it is. I mean, there are people, Muslims, who think that too. They think the Quran is a word of God. And if you ask them things about it, like Armin was saying about his grandmother, you ask her, should apostates be killed? She'd be like, yes. Like, well, are you going to kill an apostate? No, I'm not going to. There's a lot of really, really, there's a lot of people who
how
think
about the
those things.
Constitution? How about the Constitution of the United States? Leave the Bible and the Quran aside.
Well, you decide. You're
support the
deciding.
First Amendment.
No, well, I mean, let me just finish what I was saying. So that does not mean that I think that everybody who says, if someone comes up and says, yeah, I think we should kill apostates, that we should let them in. I don't think we should. There's no
So
reason.
Armin's grandma should not be here.
No,
Okay,
but
so it sounds like what you're saying aligns exactly with what I was saying. Are we disagreeing on any points?
I don't think we disagree on a whole lot. I just want to be very careful when we talk about what those shared values are. I think that there's a lot of it right now. If you look at really, really conservative Christians, like in the evangelicals in the South, there's a lot of white supremacy people like Richard Spencer. Obviously, I mean, Richard Spencer is also not the kind of person who most Americans share their
No,
values
you're right.
with,
And
most of us.
there's going to be a lot of people in the country already, but
Right, and those
And we don't want more Richard
to
Spencer.
bring in more.
well, those people are also very, very dangerous, right? So the thing is,
We have enough
when we talk about those values, but should they have an opinion? Should they be able to say what they want to say?
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Right, but
It's kind of like if you have a house, Faisal, and you want to have some house guests, okay? And and your house guest says, I believe you and your wife should be killed because you're both ex-Muslims. Would you still say, come on in, I have a guest room for you? Or would you rather give your guest room to somebody who says, actually, I believe in secularism and freedom of religion and freedom from religion, and I don't care what your religion is or what your former religion was? Let me just finish. Can I just ask Ali that question?
Well, who, me? Oh, that's for me. Well, I don't think a lot of I don't think this is it's as much as a house guest, because with a house guest you can discriminate any way you want to. And the other thing is what you're talking about, the secularism and freedom of religion and all that. There's a lot of people who are already here who are not even Muslim who don't share those values, right? So
I get that.
so I'm not saying that who should be let in, who should not be let in. I'm just saying that those are not necessarily what the American values are, what represents American values.
So what do you think what do you think are the questions that should be asked to determine as far as value?
I don't have a very good answer for that, but I just think that my only thing is like you said, the people who work in this field, right? I think they should have good definitions in terms of how we vet people who are a threat versus people who are not a threat. Some of that vetting is going to be ideological. Some of it is going to be values based, but we can't just say that, okay, we need everybody who thinks a certain way. We want everybody to think alike and so on. Like that kind of, there's a lot of that going around. I don't think that works, because I think that someone, someone who is just as American, is super conservative and a Trump supporter, and Trump is president, so obviously that represents Americans, and then somebody who's a Bernie Sanders supporter, that represents Americans too. So I don't think there's any definition in the Western world, and by Americans I mean Canada and the US, where we have a uniform definition of what our values are. So the only thing that I would say is that I think that we should be very careful when we define those values. That's
but let's I think that I agree to some extent that some of these values are, I mean, the more you go more.
Wait, Faisal, can I give you one last example? Supposing you have a whole bunch of people coming like, listen, I love the US Constitution, I'm a big fan of the Second Amendment, I'm a Muslim, and I want to come in here, and the first thing I want to do is I want the right to bear arms. That's why I'm coming to the US. They totally share your values. Like that's
one value. That's one value.
I know that's one value, but that's what I'm saying. That's how complicated this is. That you can have people who share a set of values, and there's something you don't. You're like, oh, this guy's great.
Yeah.
Let them in,
no, but for example, like I agree to some extent that some of the values, let's say, we're going to define American values as I mean, obviously, there's more than one
Free
America, right?
speech,
There is
equality
an
of
American.
people.
Yeah, I mean, Thomas Friedman, I think, wrote this article on New York Times saying that there are more than one America. There is I mean, I live in New York, and I go to Arkansas, and I see a completely different America than the America I live in right now. But I think that there is a common American value. So for example, you mentioned that like Christian conservatives. So let's say we bring in more Christian conservatives to be here in America. But we have to be on. I mean, clear.
So let me just clarify. I know Christian conservatives are not killing people unless
exactly. So at least we should have the standard that if people leave Christianity, if there are Christians who say anyone who leaves Christianity should be killed, I don't want them to be here either.
Right, I agree with you.
So, so if you believe in the First Amendment, which is that people have the freedom of religion and freedom, I mean, that is freedom from religion. They should be allowed to be here, then I think that most Christians, including Iraqi Christians, are actually very conservative. So like many of the Iraqi Christians will actually support Trump right now versus supporting a Democrat. But at the same time, I think that when it comes to Islam, there is a specific case to be said that there are many Muslims, I mean, not the majority, hopefully not the majority, but they believe that all of us who are talking right now on Google Hangout should be killed. And I don't want these people to be here, not as a result of me being bigoted or racist towards people. It's all about values.
Oh no, on that I completely agree with you. But I am very open
to have Bengali people, Iraqi people, Iranian, Pakistanis, whatever. If they don't believe that anyone who disagrees with them should be killed, this would be at least a line, as whether they support same-sex marriage or they think that transgender people of color should have
right. That's exactly my only point. That's the only point where I'd make a difference.
But I think that like if people listen to you, and I'm not trying to I think that what you're trying to say, I think what some people think you're trying to say is that well, we have some people here in America who are extremists. Why don't we accept more extremists? Well,
no, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that.
We should not accept extremists. I mean, I want less Tommy Robinsons here in America. I want less Richard Spencers. I mean, I think that because these people, the same as the extremist Muslims, they also don't believe in the Constitution. They believe in people are more superior than others. They believe that race is an important factor of what determines the human values. So I think that these people also don't subscribe to the Constitution. So I think that we should not accept white supremacists, Islamic supremacists, any supremacist should not be allowed to America. I want America to be a safe space. We don't want. I don't want America to have a terrorist
supremacist. Maybe that's okay.
Jeffrey Pickering made a good point. He said opposing same-sex marriage is very different than wanting to murder gay people.
That's all I'm saying.
That's the distinction that we're talking about here.
Right. I agree.
When we talk about values, that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about like, do you prefer chocolate chip ice cream or just vanilla? Like, it's not things that are just benign differences.
Okay, Armin, you have something to say. Just side.
All this focus.
There is a question for Armin too here when you're done.
I think yes, you brought up that question when you asked. I think Lola asked a question and yes brought it up when she said like, would you want this person as your neighbor? Right. The thing is that what we want personally decide for our lives is not necessarily what a government should do to all these people. But the point is that if we are focusing on judging people's value and be like, okay, you're a Muslim, you can't come, you're a Yazidi, you can't come, you're more persecuted, we like your ideas, we don't like your ideas. This is the point of this is to keep if the point of this is to keep us more safe, I think it might backfire, because if you think that people with bad ideas not coming to our country is going to keep those ideas out, it actually might increase the speed of ideas coming to our country because it helps their narrative. Right?
You're correct, but that's not the reason why we would do it. The reason why we would do it is because we only have a limited amount of space, limited amount of people that we can bring in.
Okay, yeah, I agree with that. So if the question on how many people we could bring in is housing policies or like, okay, we don't have a space for you guys, that I understand. But if we tell people like, we're not bringing you in because you might kill us or you're going to change the way of our life or you're going to change our culture, that's going to happen without people coming in, right? So
but it will happen anyway. Yeah. Okay, go on.
You might think it will happen faster if they come. I will actually suggests it might happen the opposite. Like the more you tell people like, okay, we're going to accept Yazidi people and Christians and not Muslims, right? This is the best sales.
I don't think any of us are saying that.
Nobody here supports we should ban all Muslims.
None of us are saying that.
But Armin, finish what you're saying.
I'm just saying, if we give priority to people that we think, okay, we say Yazidi people and Christians are more persecuted, right? So let's let them in first, right? The thing is, that's a great sales propaganda, right? For a lot of people. I think the best way to destroy this ideology of victimhood is to not make them victims, right? If a Sunni lady is is looking for a better life, or a Yazidi person is looking for a better life, we should be welcoming everybody. By the way, this is just me challenging. I'm also have arguments for the other side, but
that is just Druda's. That's just Druda's fucking argument.
We can't welcome everybody.
Yeah, but let me. Can I make one comment, because I think Ali was talking about it, about the Canada policy. I really think that the Canada policy is so much based on political correctness and bullshit. So what they're saying is that a woman who was probably married to ISIS guy is more, or still married to an ISIS guy, probably supports ISIS, is more better to come to America because she's a woman than me, who was put on a list of Al Qaeda because I'm a male.
And
do you see how political correctness is actually a fucking cancer over here? Is that the fact that they think that a woman who might be an extremist, and far more extremist than me, considering how many women actually have joined ISIS and Al Qaeda, they think she is less dangerous than me, who was put on the death list of Al Qaeda, okay, is less dangerous because she's a woman and I'm a male, says how much the politics, because they cannot name the ideology by its name, right? So they have to be so politically correct and say, well, only women and children are allowed, because they cannot even fucking name it. Justin Trudeau can't even fucking name the ideology we are talking about. So he has to be more politically correct and allow more women and men, even though there are so many men who are actually on the front lines of fighting ISIS and Al Qaeda. He will not let them in the name of political correctness. That's, you see how political correctness actually.
So Faisal, that's like, first of all, I don't agree with that necessarily. I don't agree with the Canadian immigration policy completely, first of all. And the second thing is, by that argument, when you say that the reason they do these things is they're basically screening. They're like, who is more statistically likely to do this, whether it's airport screenings or whatever, it's always single younger males, people in your age group. So like this whole idea, on the other side, they also do this thing. They're like, okay, well, Muslims who do this, so people with Muslim names who come in, they're a risk. So in that, you'd get excluded as well, right? So
I think all these statistics, to be honest, I think we should judge people case by case scenario. I think that yes, statistics.
But that's why it goes back to the values.
In practicality, you have to have a screening process that's guided by statistics, and then after that, you decide which cases to take up on a case-to-case.
Yeah, statistics. So if you gotta add the statistics, you're gonna have the statistics, and you're gonna do extreme vetting with it. Don't exclude people based upon their sex or their gender.
I agree. Yeah, I agree with you.
As like, you don't want, okay, so males are more likely to be terrorists than females. That could possibly be statistically true. But what it means is that males should have more extreme vetting than females do. I'm completely fine with this, because people who are not terrorists, who are like me, who are atheists or ex-Muslims or whatever, who come in, they will be answering the all right questions. So
you're right. They shouldn't be banned. They should be vetted.
Yeah, I mean, we oppose the Trump ban because it's based on nationality, but Trudeau made that ban based on sex. Right. And yet nobody complains about it because he accepted Muslims. He made it politically correct that, we're not gonna, but he excluded 50% of 50% of Muslims, because he based it on sex, not even on
also on sexual orientation. So people who are like gay men, that this doesn't apply to gay men.
Exactly, who are more persecuted. Exactly, so gay men will be less likely to come to Canada compared to a woman who might be more extreme. It's like, what the hell is going on? And
even the Trump ban, like they threw it out. The courts threw it out because they said that by prioritizing non-Muslims like Christians and Yazidis, that was violating the Constitution because it was giving it a religious preference. So basically, yeah.
But based on the argument that you guys just made, that even though statistics shows that men could be more violent than women, we should do case by case rather than just using statistics to generalize your profile based on being a male. So based on that argument, then we shouldn't be looking at Muslims as like, okay, so if you're Muslim, then you should take a backseat to maybe a Christian or Yazidi, because we should do case by case and look at every person individually.
I have to be clear. Now that because you keep on repeating this, Armin, so I need to make sure that you understand that when I say we take Yazidis first, I'm not saying we're taking Yazidis because they're not Muslim. I'm saying we're taking Yazidis because they're the ones that are being killed and turned into sex slaves.
Actually, yes, I actually disagree with what I'm just saying. I'm just challenging, so
really hard
I'm
to
not
providing somebody who makes
providing the devil's advocate argument. Yeah.
Okay, but I just wanted to make that clear that when I was talking about taking Yazidis first, I'm not saying because they're non-Muslim. Like, that's not the distinction I'm making. It's because they are the people that are.
I was just saying the reason that the Trump case got thrown out is because initially it said we're going to prioritize Christians and minorities,
and that's not
makes
obviously
sense
we don't
logically, because they're the ones it's a persecuted group, but at the same time the court said it was a religious preference. That's a really fine line. But
the argument against what I'm saying, the argument is against me not using statistics is that we have limited resources to vet everybody. And even though vetting people based on statistics, based on male, female, Muslim, yes, it might not be fair, and a lot of people might actually get not make the cut unfairly. This is the best we can do to go by statistics, because we don't have infinite money and infinite people to go and vet millions of people, right?
But that argument supports the argument that we should ban Muslims, right? If we're going to use statistics, then we should ban Muslims. But I'm saying that we should not ban Muslims. Is that the argument against it? I mean, if you're going to say we should not if we just rely by statistics, then Muslims are then the cause of terrorism. And I that's the thing, is like, to some extent the Canadian law, the Justin Trudeau law, is that it kind of contradicts itself, because the statistics of you being a terrorist, being a Muslim, is more likely than the correlation between you being a male and being a member of ISIS.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
So it is, to some extent, like, I am opposed. If somebody want to play by the statistics, then they should ban Muslims, because Muslims are by the statistics are more likely to be terrorists than other religions. So I'm actually saying that we should go beyond just the statistics. We should use the statistics as kind of a first layer,
a guide, yes,
as a guide, but at the same time not to make it as like the only way to do things.
Should we guys want to move on to the next question?
Sure.
Can I just answer just one quick response to Faisal? But if we use statistics even a little bit, we are basically generalizing and being, and using basically profiling people. But some people say, yes, you are profiling, you're generalizing, but this is the best we could do, and we don't have any other choice. And it's going to be unfair. But this is the best we could do. So that's basically.
But to use a counter argument, statistics is the enemy of generalizations. That's why we have fucking statistics. When you say 50% of Americans support evolution and 50% support creationism, it doesn't mean all Americans support creationism or evolution. It means 50% of them do. So statistics is, to some extent, is the enemy of generalizations. So the more statistics we have, the more data we have, the better we are as people.
So what you're saying is, if you actually use statistics and you say, okay, there are only from this country or from Lebanon, only 30-40% of people believe that apostates should be killed. I don't know if that's a true number. I'm just saying for the sake of example. Then you know that if people are coming in from Lebanon, then you can assume that a decent percentage of them would share your values or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So you can actually vet them better, right?
That would be some kind of a generalization. If you're using statistics at any point, you are at some point generalizing.
Yeah, but I think we're getting into semantics. And look, what Faisal's talking about it's not gender. You're not generalizing on the whole population. You're basically using the statistics to come to some sort of conclusion about groups.
Yeah. So flip it. Let's say not Lebanon. Let's say Norway. Okay. Norway. How many people in Norway believe that apostates should be killed? Maybe 5%, and all of them happen to be Muslim. it is less likely to. I'm being honest. I'm sorry. So you will say that people from Norway should be allowed to come to America without a visa, because it's very unlikely that some of them people coming from Norway will blow us up. That is a fair. It's called a smart guess. Smart guess in which you say that how likely that people can come from these countries would blow us up, and it is very unfair to say that people of Norway who are like, I mean, even though it's a small percentage, is a small population, is the same, let's say, as people coming from Yemen. It's not fair to people of Norway to say compared to people of Yemen. So we have to be using our statistics as a guide to say that, okay, people coming from Yemen are more likely to blow us up than people coming from Norway. This is not racist. This is just a pure observation on how people behave based upon their values. And what is the difference between people of Norway and people of Yemen is that people of Norway mostly happen to be either atheists or liberals, or liberal Christians, or liberal whatever. And people coming from Pakistan or Yemen or Iraq are more likely to be religious Muslims. These are like not. I mean, this is what the argument that Ben Affleck, Sam Harris made of like, you guys are racist. The moment he mentioned the statistics thing is like, you're a gross racist. Is that we have to be fucking honest. I come from this war-torn country that is called Iraq, that has many, that ISIS, one of the eyes of ISIS is Iraq. Okay, so I know for a fact that there are many Iraqis who share the same nationality as I do, who might be neighbors of where I come from. I don't want them to come here as well, because some of my neighbors used to be hosts of Al Qaeda. Some of my neighbors, some of the people I grew up with, used to be their cousins are members of Al Qaeda, or they have allowed Al Qaeda to live in their houses. I don't want these people to come here. I fucking escaped that place. I escaped that place.
It's very rational.
Really good. This is Faisal, what you're saying is actually a really good argument against the Muslim ban. I mean, that's what you're making. I know you oppose the Muslim ban, and it's a very good argument against it, because the thing is that if you just talk about blanket, like just a Muslim ban, or people from these countries, or even people from immigrants from Iraq, we're not going to allow any immigrants from Iraq, like the first immigration ban had, then that would exclude you. It would make no distinction between someone like you, right, and a female terrorist sympathizer who wants to kill you, right? It would make no distinction.
Because that's the thing with the blanket bans. It's based on, I think that most of blanket bans are based on pure xenophobia. There is a difference between xenophobia and being rational. I think there is a line, and that's my last speech in Maryland was to highlight there is a line between I hate Pakistanis versus, oh, I think that Pakistan was a host for Bin Laden, and I should be more worried about people from Pakistan than people from Norway. I think that there is a difference between that. There is actually, to me, it seems to be a very clear line. The only, unfortunately, because of polarization, we have a lot of xenophobia coming from the right, and we have a lot of racism of lower expectations coming from the left. So it's really tough for me to be. It's very it's very clear the line is. But
I think you're right. Yeah, I think it's very clear. Like the only way if you have a Muslim ban, then what you do is you exclude everybody. You exclude.
I don't think anybody is saying. I don't think anybody is on either one of the extremes from our questions.
Yeah, I don't think anybody is. I think we're all pretty much on the same page on this.
Yeah. So
I mean, we are on the panel. I don't know who's watching. Maybe some of the people who watch us are just looking for brown people who confirm to their narrative. But I think we're pretty much good.
No, I think there may be a lot of people watching who also want all Muslims banned, right? Like.
Not anybody. These are all our subscribers, so probably
we love our subscribers.
I assume some of them are good people.
We've been talking for an hour now, and we've only gotten to one question. Do we even want to take on another question, or do we want to just conclude it?
Who's the lucky person?
So it's actually quite a few people have asked about assimilation.
Yasmin, you are the smart person here. Choose whatever you think is the best question.
Okay. KZ in BC asks, it's not the ideas they have, it's the numbers that are allowed in at once. They can be assimilated, but not if they can mutually reinforce each other in a separate community here. And some other people have mentioned that too. So they come in and they get ghettoed, especially in Europe. And so then they're just basically living at home again, right? They're back in their communities in their Muslim majority country. They're not integrating. They're not assimilating.
Can I address this?
This is why North America is superior to Europe, by the way. I just want to say.
Hell yeah.
Anyway, Faisal, go ahead.
Yeah.
But if we're bringing in the numbers that Europe brought in, would we be as successful?
I think so. Maybe
yeah,
not
I think so too.
I think so.
But I have been in some of the conversations, so I think that's a very good question. That I really think that Europe, the thing about Europe, they have a very contradictory identity. Okay, so on one hand, they want the immigrants because they want them to work for them, and they want them, but at the same time, and I can say that not from personal experience because I don't live in Europe at all, and I was rejected from going to the UK myself. But me talking to people who think the same, not the same as me, but like atheist Iraqis, atheists live in UK, France, etc., and they will always tell me the same thing, because Europe is very much fixed on national identity. Okay, so there's such a thing as Francophone, Anglo-Saxon.
Yeah, they're nation states. European.
They're nation states, exactly. So what happens is that no matter how well integrated, how somebody tries to be integrated into European societies, they will always face difficulty in integrating that society, because I mean, one of my friends who works as a medical doctor in the UK, and even when he says he's a British, people correct him. You're not a British. You are Iraqi British. You're not a real British.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that I'm not trying to excuse, and I think what's happening is that there is a conflict, because many Muslims think that their religion is the best religion in the world. So they're coming from a supremacist concept, and then they clash with people who also have a supremacist concept of society. So what happens is that people think we are the best people the world has ever have. God gave us the best religion the world has ever have. Other people are infidels. They should be killed. And then the other people tell him, like, listen, I'm British. We occupied almost half of the world. Go fuck yourself. We're also supremacists, right? So then supremacy versus supremacy, they clash together, and then you get fucked. Like, you look at Europe right now, it's fucked because people, they're supremacists.
They're not throwing gays off rooftops, Faisal. So remember, you can't criticize them because they're not throwing gays off.
Yeah. So like what's happening is that it's a clash of supremacy. The EDL and the people like them will say, like, oh, we have a British values, and the real British is the one who's Anglo-Saxon, versus somebody comes in and says, Islam, right? We have the so we have the best religion the world has ever given. All of you are shit, and you're suck because we are Muslims and you are not Muslims, so you suck. So what's happening is that a huge clash of civilizations. The actual clash of civilizations happened more in Europe within nation states and religions that are supremacist, versus here in the States, because America is not a nation state. Canada is not a nation state. We're a nation of immigrants, right? So what's happening is that more Muslims, when they come here to America, they're more likely to integrate in American society, because there is not a big concept that what is a real American would look like. Like, I can be a real American if I have a better accent, even though my accent sucks. But like, I can be I can be an American even though that I can be not born here. While I think in Europe, it's more likely that you cannot be a real British no matter how secular you are. That being said, Islam is still, and Muslims and extremist Muslims in that regard, still face the biggest blame.
That sounds like our countries too. Like in Egypt, even though my mom is Egyptian and I spoke fluent Egyptian, but my father's not Egyptian, so I'm still not considered Egyptian.
Armin, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I just to give an example, you know, for example, on an Atheist Republic page, a lot of times some of the admins there, they want to remove some extremist religious people, and I always try to beg them to please let them stay, because people usually don't believe us when we see these people exist. I want them on the page. I want them to come and tell the things that they're saying, so people could. They're just exhibits, right? They're just exhibits for us. So I think a lot of these extremists that we might not want here because they're a threat to us here and our way of life. The thing is that if they are a threat to us, they're definitely a threat to somebody else over there already, even more than here, because there's more law here that might stop them, right? So I think, it might be a little bit selfish if, I'm not going to see a Canadian life is not more valuable than a Pakistani life. So if that person is a threat here, and I don't want that person over here. Basically, do I want that person to be a threat to some innocent people in Pakistan, or I want that person somewhere with a more powerful rule of law that might
Let's go
actually
collect all of the criminals and jihadis and bring them here. Then
let me just finish my thought. All right. So, and given that most people with these extreme views might actually don't hurt anybody, given that the danger of these extreme views are more long term and more costly in the long term than a terrorist attack here and there, I would want maybe some extremist here to be like, hey, look, we weren't kidding that these people are real. Look, it's right now in your fucking back neighbor. This guy is your neighbor now. Look at what we're telling you, what's happening in Pakistan or is happening in Saudi Arabia. Now it's right here. Now you can't deny the fact that these people exist, because I want this global problem maybe to now be your fucking problem, because now you can't ignore it anymore, because you might have not cared about the people in Pakistan or in Saudi Arabia that were suffering from this asshole, but now you're suffering from this asshole maybe, and you're saying that this is actually a real threat to the world, and now you might actually think that, okay, this is a dangerous ideology that we need to deal with.
But are you being devil's advocate?
I'm not
being
sure.
devil's advocate, or
I
do you
hope you don't really believe that.
Because I just think that people should be blown up in New York or Pennsylvania.
That we should bring people like that here to, like, actually as an example, or is this devil's advocate?
Well, obviously somebody is going to kill some. I don't want obviously somebody that is actually going to harm people should fucking die, right?
No.
I don't want.
Is this you or the devil's advocate? We want to know.
Somebody. No. Here's the thing. If I know somebody is going to come kill fucking New Yorkers, I don't want them in Pakistan or New York. That person should just not exist on this planet, right? So yeah, it's a little bit of a devil's advocate, but maybe not I don't want terrorists here, but maybe some people that have some extreme views, but not to the extreme that it actually will kill anybody, right? Because I just think the line should be a little bit more closer to extreme views, because I do want people to see that this is a real problem. So here's another example. Like, let's say,
but they can see it already. They don't. I don't think that Americans.
I think they don't. Armin's mad at this.
There's a KKK here. There's homegrown terrorism. There's lone wolves. There's all kinds of things.
I'm not talking about terrorism, guys. I'm talking about people, because we keep talking about terrorism, but there's a bigger danger. Islam has a much bigger cost to this planet than just terrorism. Terrorism is just the most visible, the most talked about, the most newsworthy thing that is going to get views, right? But Islam and religion as a whole and faith as a whole is fucking us in many other ways than just a bomb here and there, right? And these extreme examples, like people that are not going to kill anybody, but people that have weird views and weird ideas, and people that we keep telling us that this is the norm over there and they don't believe us, I want those people to live right next to you so you can see that this is actually pretty normal.
Oh,
I'm not sure I agree with. I think I'm in complete disagreement. I think that
I get where he's coming from.
Point. I think I know your point. That is that we want people, because
I never saw this side of Armin before.
No. What he's saying is he doesn't want the terrorists here, but he wants people to know that the threat of Islam is way more serious than terrorism, and it's not just people who kill you that are the problem. It's those extremists, the people who have these views, who live right next to you. So he's actually going beyond
No,
a
he
lot
said
of
he
us
wants
are when
them
it
to
comes
live
to
right
the
next
Yeah,
to
answer.
you.
I mean, he's the true. I think he's the true
He's going
Islamophobe.
beyond. Yeah,
I think he's a true Islamophobe here. I think to give
yeah.
you
That
a more
is the most
charitable.
I think he's mad at
Yeah.
the SJW far left people, and he wants to bring a jihadi to move in next door to
This is like
one of
counter
them.
opposite. Look at this. It's like, dude, lay off the Muslims. Come on.
Yeah.
I think to give you, I mean, I'm going to be a bit in defense of Armin here. I'm going to give him the most charitable example. I think what he's saying is that many people in the West live in an extreme bubble.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they think that terrorism is only
That's the only
like
threat from Islam.
the
Yeah.
only threat from Islam, and also it's only happening somewhere else than the West.
Mhm,
And they
mhm.
would only care about Islam because of the terrorism happening in the West. He's saying that we should let some of these terrorists in, so they do
Not the
damage here.
terrorists. Just the people who believe, the faithful. That's it. Not the ones who are going to kill you. Just the faithful, just to show how toxic.
Yeah, to show
faith
like, oh, it's a
itself
bigger.
is.
Oh, look, like here is Islam. We have been talking about it for the past 5,000 years, and
Mm.
now look at it's in your backyard. I obviously disagree so much with this
That was
argument.
pretty badass.
That's pretty
I think-
intense.
I think I disagree so much with this argument. I think
Forget
that
terrorism.
we don't want enough of it here. I think that America and the West like have had enough, in my opinion. Like, yes,
The whole
because I
world has
think
had enough.
yeah, I think that I mean, the world has suffered. Like, if you're gonna tell people who lost their family in 9/11 or whatever, and tell them like, oh, we need more terrorist attacks here so people will wake up, I don't think that's the best argument to make. I think that you are coming from a very good place, Armin. I'm not gonna judge you. It's an interesting argument. To be honest, this is the first time I hear an argument like this, so I'm like still a bit shocked about like it is on one hand it is sounds like the most apologist argument, but the other hand it sounds the most Islamophobic argument I've ever heard. So it's like it is a weird fucking thing.
No,
Like, it's like that is the first time. That's good job, Armin. Like,
No, this is an
you
answer
have
to all those
confused
people that
me.
say they're like Islam is fine. The problem is the terrorism, right? So he's
Yeah.
basically saying he's like, oh no, oh yeah, you think Islam's fine? Okay, let's bring him here and make him your neighbor. Let's see how fine it is now.
Yeah.
Like that's
I do feel. I get.
think that is like the weird, like it's the weirdest argument.
It's a weird argument, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Like I've
it's
said
interesting.
before, like when I have those kinds of people that are refused to see anything wrong with Islam, I say like I'd love to send them to Saudi Arabia or to Afghanistan or to Pakistan.
Yeah,
or
he's just
whatever.
doing this in reverse.
He's
It's
doing it the opposite.
without
Yeah.
with the tailwind. With the tailwind.
Exactly, because what happens is when somebody says, "Oh, Islam, like Muslims are all peaceful," I'm like, "Oh, go to a Muslim country. I can buy
Yeah.
your flight ticket."
Yeah.
What he's Armin is like the reverse. It's like let's make this person your fucking neighbor, and then you will see how fucking bad it is to live next to an extremist Muslim. It's actually
Anyway.
a very. I mean, but the reason why I just go with this argument is because Armin is saving flight for these fucking people who complain all the time here. So you are saving them money. They should be the ones flying. We don't need to book a flight for these people to come in. You know, actually, no. The people who are complaining all the time, who don't think that there's a problem with Islam, whatever, they're the ones who should book their flights. Not bring the. We should not pay anything for these people. Like they are.
Armin,
should-
the people in the comments are freaking out at you.
So
No,
what
but-
we're trying
Well,
to
I
say,
mean, well, these people don't recognize that we're living in such a global village right now that even if it doesn't feel like these people are your neighbors, they are already your neighbors because they have the ears of people that like right next to you. They have the ears of and eyes of people that are watching YouTube and are on social media. They're already right next to you. It may just not look like it. So maybe we should just put them next to you so you know how
you know
close
what?
these people are.
I double that, and I've said it a lot of times. I'm like, ISIS is already here. For anyone in the United States or Canada who thinks that they're not, I will tell you right now, they're here. They're in your cities, they're in your towns, they're in your neighborhoods. Some of them don't even know. Like, you know, when we're talking about kids potentially what they're going to do, they're getting radicalized on the internet. They're falling in love with the charm of ISIS fighters. They're watching the video. They're looking
Speaking
at
of ISIS,
There's
do you
no
guys get
ban,
this?
There's no ban. There's no wall. There's nothing that can keep that ideology out. And unless you start fighting these ideas with ideas, this is an ideological battle. Unless you do that, there's no ban or no wall that's gonna keep this stuff out.
I
And
totally
that's why-
agree.
and that's why
being
we-
honest
And
about
that's
it.
and that's
Yeah.
why we
Being
have
honest
this
about it.
and that's why we have this podcast.
Speaking of ISIS, do you guys get this friend request from this like hot women on Facebook who only have 10 friends and ask you to have be
That's
their
not
friend?
ISIS. That's
No, I
those are
think it
porn
is
bots.
ISIS. I think it's ISIS. I think it's fucking ISIS.
Actually, you know what? You're right. It could be ISIS. You never know.
Why is Stephanie? Why is Stephanie, who only has 10 friends, and she posts pictures with shorts, asking me to add her? I think that Stephanie is part of ISIS.
That's
like,
ISIS.
I think
Maybe you should message her and find out.
It's not a lone wolf. It's a bone wolf. The thing is,
it's a boner. It's a boner wolf.
So, on that note, I just want to say that all of us, basically, to all the non-Muslims listening to this, and all the non-ex-Muslims even listening to this, we're here. We're taking your jobs. We are. Listen, I've stolen like 3 Western jobs already as an immigrant. I know that all of us have taken a few.
Tell me about it.
Huh?
I think I've stolen enough jobs from this country.
Yeah, I know, but we're I don't know what else to say.
I wanted to continue from that point that you were making, Ali, about how the ISIS is already here. Not the ISIS, but how ISIS is already here. Terrorists are already here. I just wanted to add to that and say, yes, that's true, but there's not as many here as people on the right wing think there are. And there's not as little here as people on the left wing think there are.
Well, exactly.
Hell yeah. I actually wrote an article about this.
Mm-hmm.
I think that both sides actually exaggerate how, actually that's kind of happened before when I met you, Yasmin, because there was this report about how many people here in America are getting radicalized, and there are many people in Minneapolis, in Minnesota, who, I think 30 people of them flew to Syria to join ISIS. I was like, what the hell? And then the next story was like, oh, there are people who live in Brooklyn. We're going to JFK to fly to join ISIS. I'm like, okay, what the fuck? These people live 1 mile away from me. So but at the same time, compared to Iraq, which is part of ISIS, I think it is much less. It's far much less. I think the other part that the right wing,
if Pakistan was part of ISIS, it would be called IPIS. That's
that will be funny.
I'm really glad we're not.
I think the other part that the right wing exaggerates when we're talking about the immigration, to just keep it on the subject, is that because I came into the United States under the Obama administration. So when you talk to someone who supports Trump, who supports the travel ban in general, and you tell them how was the travel ban, how was the vetting during Obama administration, they will tell you, oh, they let everyone in, they give you free green cards on the way if you're Iraqi, and it took me fucking months and years to come to America. Under Obama administration, it was actually difficult to come to America. This concept that Obama was letting millions of refugees in is just complete garbage.
Yeah, it's actually, Obama actually deported more people back to Mexico, more illegals back to Mexico than any other president ever before as well. This is a report from The Economist. So that's something, but obviously the Democrats are not going to go around and make a big campaign deal out of it. Obama's foreign policy was very inspired by George Bush Sr. So when it came to foreign policy, he was actually pretty more of a realist. He was a very sort of Fareed Zakaria, Thomas Friedman, Jeffrey Goldberg kind of guy on it. So he's relatively conservative on that.
Yes, it's one thing. It's talk about exaggerations. Is that some people on the right think that everyone Obama brought millions to America, and the left will tell you that everyone comes from there is a moderate Muslim that we should accept. So I think that's the reason why I love our podcast, is that I think that we are able to make nuance great again.
I know. Yeah, we are the far center, or the alt center.
Except for Armin, he wants to bring murderers over.
Oh my God, Armin! I just think you scared the shit out of a lot of people. You did you could have just read from the Quran right there. Yeah, anyway.
Okay, so I think that you said that was the last question. So
sure, yeah, let's wrap it up.
So this brings up the end of our show for the night. We were having a guest, but the guest didn't. There were some issues regarding.
But that's okay. They don't need to know that. That's our inside story.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're so glad you guys were all able to join us in our impromptu broadcast, and hopefully we'll be doing more of these. So subscribe, get your friends to subscribe, and please
donate.
leave us. Armin, did you want to talk
Reviews.
about the
Give us reviews.
the reviews?
Yeah, guys, the most important thing you could do to help us is go to iTunes or Stitcher and leave us a review there, because the more reviews you leave us, iTunes is going to show us to more potential interested subscribers. So if you could go on iTunes and leave us a review, that would be so helpful. Thank you so much.
And SoundCloud. I think SoundCloud. Follow us on SoundCloud. We're also on, what is this? Lesbian.com?
Yep.
What is the website called? Lesbian?
You're looking at a private page right now, your own
Libsyn.
stuff.
No. It's
Libsyn.
Libsyn, not lesbian.
Don't worry about Libsyn. Libsyn, don't worry about Libsyn, because Libsyn
That's for us.
pushes
Faisal.
everything to iTunes. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's private.
There's gonna be a whole bunch of people going to lesbian.com right now. It's gonna be
Faisal sent me.
whoever started that would be like, whoa, this is it.
So go
Like, all these
wherever you
secular
find
jihadists
us.
doing it.
So in the Quran it says, kill them wherever you find them. For you is review us wherever you find them. Wherever you're gonna find us on YouTube, on iTunes, on whatever website, leave us a review. We are also on Patreon. You can donate. I think I made a very good joke. I'm proud of myself. And leave us. Go to Patreon. Give us some of your money. If you are Jewish, give us more money than you are actually due. And let's make the world great again. Thank you for listening.
Let's do that.
right.
Uber. Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.